right? And let's say Jack is, what do you think Jack is?
Jack is, if I were to profile her using a DISC, she falls under the category of, she probably has 3 personality types, right? Number 1, she would be a C, an analyzer, because she analyzes every single thing. Number 2, she will be an I, right? Because an influencer. Why? Because look at the way she dressed. She's always the best dressed among the 3 of us anyway, right? She always looks good. That's the I in her. She always stands out in a crowd, you know? So that's the I in her. And the last one would be the supportive character, which is the S. So she would be categorized under CIA. Okay, CIA. Yeah? But of course, the element of D is also there somewhere, because it's not her highest trait. It's there somewhere. It's probably on par with the last profile, which is the S. It's probably on par. She's very patient. She's a very patient person, and she goes to length and breadth with people, but there's a line with her. Once you cross that line, the D gets activated, she tells you off. But it's very hard for her to cross that line. She's patient, but when she gets pissed off to a certain level, boom, there you go, she explodes. But that's very, I would say it doesn't happen often, only on occasions maybe, and her buttons have to be pushed to the maximum for that to happen. That's how I profile her.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, because I think for someone like Jack, it's kind of hard to read, because she's quite balanced. And why I say she's, we all tend to have a certain personality, a dominant personality. But I think for those who are aware, either through training or sometimes it's just common sense, or I wouldn't say common sense, they're more intuitive. They learn how to adapt. You know, so for someone like Jack, I think you tend to display all, right? For someone like Jack, for instance, you can speak to her about relationships and she can be engaging. You can speak to her about topics that are analytical, you know, she can be engaging. You can speak to her about getting dressed, you know, doing parties or whatever it is, she can be engaging. And same thing about getting results, getting work done. But I think there's a clue, you know, Darren. We're putting you under a microscope, Jack, but this is just to, you know, illustrate some points. I get what you're saying, that Jack is all of those things, but I've known you for a number of years, and I've been in many workshops with her. And when she's in a workshop, she's a very strong A. And when it comes to work, she's a very strong D, because I worked on some projects with her. She's a very strong D. If you're going to whine to her, she's not the one to whine to. You want to whine to, you know, because she has very little patience for that. So, which to me means that the S, being the supporter type, she will give it to you if you need support. But the whining part, she doesn't entertain that, because the D kicks in. You know, so Jack, I am, you know, try to put you under the microscope, but I'm sure it's interesting to hear.
Permission,
right? Yeah.
Agreed,
for me,
agreed.
for me, you know, I'm actually more of a supporter type. I can take the lead if the situation warrants it. So if I'm in a team, for instance, and nobody's taking the lead, I will take the lead. But very quickly, I like somebody else to take the lead. And I would be a very good supporter. I'd be a very good person to back that person up. Because to me, taking the lead is tiring. You know, you got to think of everything, or think of everyone, and it doesn't work for me very well. So I'd rather be the support. I'm also quite an analytical guy. In fact, before I understood all this, I used to get offended a lot, especially by the Ds. You know, like you were saying, Darren, your mom and your dad, they're both opposites, right? So I would be the supporter type. And then if someone is a strong D, when they talk to me, especially if it's a stranger, right? And I meet them for the first time, and they would text me. Like for instance, now when Jack and I are working together, and sometimes she would she needs some ideas, right? She'd just say, "Give me some points on this," right? Now, because you don't know this, Jack, so I'm telling you now. I'm okay with that. But before I understood all this, I actually get offended, especially if I don't know you very well. For someone to tell me, "Give me this," I get very offended because I'm a strong relationship person. So give me this is an order, and I will resent it. If you had said, could you please help me out with this? You know, for someone like me, the key word is actually help. Can you help me? The minute you say, can you help me? I'm gone. I will help. You know, so a lot of S people, guess what? They get taken advantage of. Seriously, because people, because they are always putting themselves, putting other people's interests ahead of them. Yeah, I'm not saying this to, you know, seek pity or anything. It's just that the minute I understood this kind of stuff, then I realized why I was the way I was. It's because of the personality that I had. So what I needed to do was actually to learn how to adopt other personality profiles. But I think the key here is the languaging. What kind of language do you need to use with someone, right? So you mentioned that if you were talking to a D person, Darren, it needs to be about work, about results, things like that, right? Politics. So a lot of men in leadership positions, they like to hear about success and money. I think money is another one, right? Yeah. Jack.
I think the phrase that if you use DISC as the basis of profiling, then it's called flex. Flexing, not abandoning your personality, but flexing towards the personality of others. Meaning to say that if you are engaging with someone who is a D, and then the languaging has to be flexing towards that person who is. So it's no longer about you, it's about the other person. So when you have a conversation with a D person, the words that you choose to use, you have to be careful, because things that they would like to listen to as well. So the same thing goes if you have a conversation with an S, with a C, with an I person, then you flex towards that. I think a very good example, Omar, would be that you and I can have a conversation about almost anything we want to have a conversation on, and then we can even have our quiet pause moments, which when while we're eating, and we're quite okay with that. But if you notice that when we both talk to Adina, our good friend in Sabah, you notice that she's an I. She's an outright I. And she's flamboyant with her language. She's so colorful. And we tend to also flex. The Malay word is layan lah, kita layan. You know, we have to, because if you don't make them feel good, they don't connect to you. There's a bit hard to have a good conversation with people like that. If you keep saying, oh, I'm a D, so I'm going to just do things the way I want to do things, I don't care about you, then that doesn't make you a very good conversationalist. You will fail in connecting to people, right? So flex, that's the word, flex towards other people's personality, but staying true to yours, but just minding the language that you use.
Yeah, flex is in being flexible, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So Jack, let me ask you this: do you have a strong I person that you know that you can talk about, or an A person? Yeah.
Even my father is a very strong I, because being around my father is like the best ever person that I'm being with. As in, I will be nonstop laughing, because my father was a very flamboyant person, and he will make the whole environment feel alive. And yeah, and another thing about my father is that the part that I can recall strongly is that because he was an I, because my father is no longer around, so therefore I use that was. My father will keep his emotion to himself, as in, because his value is around to make sure that everyone feels good in those people that surround him. Another thing about I is that because you're right, Omar, when it comes to a certain part of my life, I am a very strong D. I couldn't be well, it's not couldn't be bothered, but I'm very focused on the result, to finish things as per how it is. I have no time and effort to entertain emotions. And because especially when you know, the project has been going on for a certain period of time, and therefore my perception is, because I'm D, my assumption is really around, okay, I think both of us on Abel, I mean whoever in the team now know that the focus is to really to make sure that the project is working well or going towards the direction that intended it to be. Now my father wasn't like that. My father is a very all over the place kind of person. But
Yeah.
because we complement, as in, I love being with my father, like really, like, because when we were together, I'll be laughing nonstop and I'll forget a lot of stuff around my head. So therefore, I think Dee and I is really complement each other. And because your question is around I, right? And I do
Yeah.
have, well, we encountered in our trainings, we do, I think all of us, we have encountered a lot of these personalities as well. And these are the people will make the whole environment feel fun, engaging. And these people are the one will make sure that, you know, the trainer feel how to say, feel good as well, if I can say that, quote unquote, right? And it's always the case. So yeah, I mean, I do have, I mean, we have friends who are very flamboyant as well, you know, and I developed this character as an I, well, this personality. I think as I am sort of like evolving into from my insecurity of afraid of talking in front of people, the byproduct of it is, it's like I'm now the end of the spectrum, the opposite end of the spectrum, where I don't mind talking nonstop in front of people now, and I don't mind. Well, I'm enjoying expressing myself in front of people, be it in conversation as well as in my appearance. And of course, because I have the skill, yeah,
Yeah.
and I have the skill and I acquired that in my training as an image consultant. So I think that gives me the confidence to express myself. And also because there's something attached to it, because image consultancy is also my business, so therefore I have to walk the talk, right? So therefore it goes hand in hand, that I think I am now more I in most occasion. Not, well, I mean, you have to discount when I am heading a project. There's no I at all, no I at all, yeah. No fun, no party. It's really about do and just, you know, be specific, and that's it. No hanky
Right. Yeah.
panky. Yes.
Yeah. So the I people tend to be um, very lively. They're very lively. They have short attention span, you know, and they can talk about so many things, right? So when you're with an I person, or if you're an I and you meet another I person, meletup, you know, there's an explosion, because they both kind of drive each other, they fuel each other, you know. But if you start to engage them in this in a long-winded discussion, you talk about systems, you talk about details, especially details, they're gonna die, right? So I'm not sure if you have examples with your dad. Like for instance, if you have someone in your team who is an I, or if you have a boss, let's talk about a boss. You have a boss who's an I, and you have a project that is going to help you recover from this COVID situation. You know how to raise money, right? How would you talk to that boss? Would you share the detailed plans? Let's say,
Right.
okay, hang on. Let me make it a little bit easier, because if usually a boss tends to be well balanced, yeah, pretty much. So then it's a different story. But I want to take it to that extreme so that the illustration is easy. So let's say your boss is a complete extreme I. He's always excited, you know, he's always lively, kind of like your dad, Jack. but is an extreme I. How would you talk to that boss?
Extreme
Anyone?
I or extreme C?
And I'm talking about an I first, an I boss.
An I
A boss
boss
who
and
is,
you are a C person.
no, it doesn't matter. It
Oh,
doesn't
right.
matter what you are.
Okay.
But
All right. Sorry.
how do you present to your boss? How do you convince him to do
Oh,
something?
okay. Yeah. Well, I have not experienced an I boss, but yes, client, yes. Well, an I person is all about himself or herself. It's always around what you're proud of yourself. That's where they are okay to showcase themselves as long as people, well, I mean, even people don't give them attention, they still want it to express themselves, right? So I will hook myself into the idea that this person needs to feel listened to, feel, okay, this is the right word, encourage to showcase themselves. So therefore I will go into it, kind of like, well, as I'm talking, as I'm explaining this, a bit of like manipulating, but no, it's not, but really around going
But how to make
flexing.
things
I like the word flexing when Darren mentioned this just now. Flexing yourself around this person's personality, so that first thing first, this person feel that you get him or you or her, right? So what I will be doing or what I have done will be around asking question around this person. Where have you gone for your holiday? How was your holiday? Or, if you're in the room, so I will say around, wow, you have a very nice picture of your family. This kind of stuff, because it's all around them being given
yeah.
that attention. But you have, okay, hang on, you really have to do it out of a conscious mind, not to merely flattering out of wanting to gain something, because I know that I person will notice that
Yeah.
the subtle part of the intention of you doing that. Therefore you have to do it. I can say that because I'm like I mentioned, I'm now developing myself or evolving myself to become an I, right? But not only that, I've also learned the theory of BISC, and I noticed that it's true. If you giving them attention merely because you want to get something out of them, they actually can feel that, they will sense that in you, and that's it. The relationship sooner or later will be over. So yeah, I think it's, again, your question will be around, my answer to your question will be around giving them the venue to express themselves,
Okay.
giving them
All
that
right.
position. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the word that you used, that Darren used, was really good. Flex. Being flexible, because it is not about manipulating. So I think this is where one of your C's come into play, Darren. Right? And I would say it'd be about care, because you need when you are engaged with someone, you need to be able to see how can you care about this person such that they will interact with you, right? Because different personalities care about different things. So in the case of an I person, they care about more about themselves. And I'm not talking about it in a selfish way, but in a it's just their personality. Themselves meaning, if I wanted to convince them to do something, I got to be able to say something like, "This is going to make you look good," something to that effect, right? Boss, if we do this, we're going to look fantastic. We're going to be the first in the market. Everybody is going to admire us. He's going to like that, or she is going to like that, because it makes them look better, right? So you need to be able to flex, to be flexible when you're talking with different personalities. Darren, what's your take on talking to eyes in terms of persuading them to do something?
I think what Jacqueline said is already covering most of it, yes. But I think for different personalities, they have different approaches that you want to use. You can, I've actually encountered this many times. I had bosses who are I, and I had clients who are I, DISC, the whole personality spectrum, in fact. And I've actually sat in a room in a meeting where I had the boss who was a D, the HR manager was an I, and everybody else either S or C. Right? And it's very difficult because you need to convince the boss, because you need to give short presentation to the boss, making sure it makes sense and it's logical to him for him to go for this training. And of course, at the same time, the HR manager needs to be taken care of, because he's all about, hey, you got to make me look good with the boss also lah, you know. And then of course the S and the C's are just followers. So end of the day is quite tough. But if you're talking about a specific relationship, like for example, you mentioned just now, do you have an I boss? I did. And this I boss was in Australia. It was many years ago, I think almost more than 10 years ago, where when I was working in the corporate, and that was my last corporate job, in fact. And what happened was I got this boss from Australia. His name is Robin, and he's a very high I. He's all over the place. He has good intentions, but he's all over the place. And I was trying to develop my C and my D a little bit more back then. So I used to have a challenge, and I go to him and say, "Hey, Robin, you know what? I couldn't get these things done because the HOD on the other department doesn't want to comply. So what do you think we should be doing?" And Robin will give me an answer. Only I can give me an answer. He will look at me and say, "Darren, if you had the opportunity to make such a decision, what would you do, Darren?" Now I look at him and say, "Hey, cikit darah, dia mak salih aku tanya dia tanya aku balik pula." So he doesn't give you a direct answer. He opens up another phase of conversation which can last another hour with him. And it's very frustrating back then for me, because I know that I have an I in me, but I'm trying to, in the working environment, try to develop my C's and develop my D's more.
Yeah.
But he's not helping, and I had to, well, eventually when you build, I think for an I, is that when you build the bridge, when you build the relationship with him or her, and then it gets better. They tend to share more because now they understand you more, you understand them more. They like that personal touch. For example, it's like you and me, like Omar. I cannot come to you and say, "Omar, you know, this training is going to happen on Monday. We need to meet on Sunday right now. So get this sorted out." So if you don't know me, you get offended because you being an S character. Oh, hey, this fella too much lah. Don't even know him. You're already demanding that I meet him on Sunday. But if I would have taken and stepped back and applied that 3 C's, right, especially that caring part where I say, "Hey, Omar, where are you from? How's the family? What's going on?" And I build a relationship with you. And then after building that relationship, and I find that you are okay with me, you're comfortable, then I said, "Hey, by the way, Omar, Sunday seems to be a good time for us to meet up to discuss, because the training's on Monday. Are you okay with that?" And you will go like, "Hey, why not, man? Let's have coffee." But once again, it's about the individuals and the situation that you're in. So with an I and with an S, very simple fact is that they are very people-centric. So build relationships. With a D and the C, simple, they are result-centric.
Right.
And the D, a little bit different from the C, because the D likes the overall picture. He doesn't like the details of the details, whereby the C, you can talk about details. So you have to be able to specify on those core areas, key areas. Then you're then the conversations, the words, the languaging, everything comes quite natural with each one of them. Right. In context. Or else, if you don't know how to profile and you just mind tembak, you might get burned a lot of times, because you tend to learn from failing, because oh yeah, I should have said that, the flow was a D, oh my god, I made a mistake. So that could have been damaging to the relationship already. So it's good to learn profiling, because it actually gives you the skill, like what Jack said, it's actually a skill for you to have that conversation with those specific personalities. And each personality the approaches should be a slightly different one based on their core skills, or core competencies or personality traits, right, or their characteristics. So it's actually based on that. So yeah, that's how I would do it.
Yeah, I just want to add on a bit on the Omar, because again reminds me of my father. I remember when it comes to important matters to the family, he was not the one who will drive it to happen. It will always me. So again, like I said, we complement each other in that sense, that I'll be the one nagging instead of my father. So yeah, so I make sure that things happen, especially when it comes to important matters, because he will go into like fun part of it, you know. I feel like when I was dealing with my father, around important matters, he was, I feel he was a person like floating. There's nowhere to land because I just wanted to be something to land and get it done then and then. So yeah, so we have to understand in that sense. So therefore, I think if you, again, knowing personality is not about that's how you are and therefore you cannot do that. It's just around what weaknesses that you can improve, and therefore we can, each of us will complement each other.
Okay, let me ask you this, either one of you. You have a friend where if you were to ask him or her to see a movie, right, they will come back and ask you so many other questions, like who's in the movie, what is the storyline about, who else is going, what's the rating like, how many awards did they win? You have a friend like that?
Yep.
Yeah, there's always somebody like that, right? They want to know all the details. They want to know all the details. Now, these are the C people. The C that we refer to is called conscientious or compliant. Compliant meaning they like to follow the rules, and they're very detailed and they're very analytical. And Jack, when it comes to work, you're quite analytical as well. So that's why you compliment your dad, because your dad was an I. He's a very he likes to touch on the surface. He can't analyze things, but he livens up the situation. Whereas for you, you're listening to him and you're analyzing, where is this going? Does this make any sense? Right? So that's why you complement each other. At the same time, C's and I's, they don't get along. So if you know of a pair like that, please share. But just let me share mine first. I have a daughter. She's a strong I. She's always very lively. She's they're not staying with me now. They've grown, but when she was little, she was the life of the party, right? She keeps the household alive. She's always singing, making noise, full of drama and things like that. And she has a brother who's a strong C. This guy can sit down by himself, 24 hours even, at the same spot and just do his own thing. He'd be drawing or watching YouTube or reading or something like that. And he can't stand her at that time. He can't stand her because all he wants is peace and quiet, and he wants things to make sense. For her, it doesn't have to make any sense. So they can't talk. They can't talk to one another. So for a boss who is a C, who likes the details, you're going to have to handle them differently. Has any one of you had a boss who was a strong C?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did have a boss that very strong C. I think that's where I got my training when it comes to projects, reporting projects, doing your report. My boss was, really nitpicking, I call it, like, going into like very detail of things around the project. Well, I mean, I can make reference to the project that we were doing, and because I'm D back then too. I think more when it comes to work. So I got irritated sometimes because all the little things you want to know also. And what's important for me is we've done the project as per deadline, as per required. Why do you have to go back and wanting to know more about? Okay, not only that, wanting to know more about what we have done, and also that boss has this tendency of what are you going to do in detail. For me, back then, it was really around just do it and just see the result. Why do you want to know the detail? Because it's just on paper. I can give you idea, but not in detail, because for me, as we go along implementing the project, that matters the most than the result, right? But I managed to flex myself into understanding this type of personality. And every time I had that conversation, regardless whether reporting or it was just a casual conversation about the project, I will then go into the detail. In fact, I think this training really helpful for me even now, because Oma is very detailed as well. And I have another friend who she's like very, very big picture. All she knows is all about all
Yeah.
those future, it's vision, future result, and this Oma need to execute certain thing, and she will be keep on saying about the bigger picture. And I realized that because of my experience working with that with the C boss. And yeah, therefore we had this session where I decided to step in, and I moderated the meeting, because I and Oma, we've been in a quite a number of projects. Therefore, I mean, that's my sharing around boss with a C character or C personality.
Yeah. Okay. One other thing that I want to bring up here is when my kids were in school, they come home and they say, "Papa, I'm a D or I'm an I," and things like that, right? Because the teacher was actually doing a personality assessment on the students, and they may not have called it DISC, but they would actually use animals, for instance, right? An eagle or what else? A dove and things like that, or a lion and stuff like that. And the kids come home, they say, "I'm a lion" or "I'm an eagle." Um, I find that distressing, because it's easy to make an assessment like that. But Darren, we were talking about this earlier, right? What is your take on people who are not trained to do assessments, and then they're telling others, especially kids, that they are a certain way? What's your take on that?
Number one, personality profiling should never be done for children. DISC, for example, can only be done effectively if the person have reached the age of 16 and above. 16 for a girl, 18 for a guy. Then you will get more accurate results. Children, on the other hand, are still developing their personality. So any personality profiling tool will not be very accurate, because you're capturing the present. You're not really capturing what's going to happen in the future. For example, if I use my kids, then my youngest boy right now, he's 11, and he's an outright D. He just wants to win all the time. He doesn't like when he has to share his things. He's always wanting to be the leader, wanting to make the tough decisions. So he looks like a D to me right now. But I don't want to profile him yet, because I've seen children who were very dominant when they were young, but when they grow up, they tend to become introvert, or they tend to lean towards more an S and a C personality. So it's actually not very wise to do it for children just yet. Let them develop their characters first, because they are still in a very early stage of their life. Then when they reach a certain level in their life, then you do a personality profiling on them, it's a little bit more accurate. So I don't encourage profiling children, because why? Like what you mentioned just now, Omar, what has happened in school, if the teacher is then to profile the children, the teacher then to typecast the children into, or box the children into a certain type of personality. I'm an owl. Owl is very analytical. I analyze everything. Oh, owls, we don't get along very well with the peacocks, because we think the peacocks are too full of themselves. So they start to develop the negative side of profiling,
Yeah.
which is being judgmental, because that's actually the negative side of profiling. When someone is typecast into a personality, we tend to draw judgment, or we drop judgment on them. Oh, the fellow is a D, or he's an eagle. So eagle, we don't include them because they're very, all about the results, very, very leceh to talk to this kind of people.
Yeah.
So we tend to judge. So that's dangerous for kids, because they cannot differentiate. They tend to go to judgment faster than adults, because they think it's okay. So I would discourage profiling for children totally. Let them be who they want to be until a certain age. Because you see, when you profile someone, you do a profiling test, it's really not about you, because you would probably know who you are. And you, oh, I'm a D, I'm an I, whatever. But great if you know who you are. When you profile, when you do profiling tests, is to actually get along with the masses. It's actually to get along with other people who
Exactly.
are of different
Yeah.
profiling or different profiles. It's not really about you. If you are a D, fantastic, well done. So what? You know, so what if you're a D? But if you can't get along with the remaining personality, it'll make
Right.
you very ineffective in every single way, right?
Yeah.
And like what Jack said just now, and she had the boss who is a C. I had a boss who was a C, and I find him very irritating as well because I'm a D and a little bit of an I in me. So my C is actually the lowest. So when he was bugging me on details and structure and systems, I really felt like committing murder. You know, I felt like killing the guy. But I actually developed my C because of him. It took me a long time. Yes, but the problem with leaders is the same problem we have now, we have back then. Leaders lead with their own personality and their own set of values, which is very wrong. So what if I'm a C, but my entire team, no one is just as C as I am. So I need to understand other people's personalities so that I can work with them. You know, yes, develop their C's, but at the same time, understand that they could be an I, they could be a D, they could be an S. So also go that flex towards them as well. So many leaders don't even know this. Right? Hence
Yeah.
why the leaders of those days, they just lead with their own set of personalities, their own values, and they expect you to actually come to them.
Exactly.
So thank God people like me and Jack took that as an opportunity to learn. But let me tell you that we are part of that small percentage people who do that. Majority will just leave or they don't learn
Yeah.
anything in that process. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the point that you brought up about teachers teaching kids, instead of telling them, well, you're an eagle, you don't get along with a dove. You know, instead of doing that, they'd be better off to say, hey, if you're speaking to somebody who behaves like this, you need to speak more about. You need to talk about how they feel. You know, what do they think of? Um, what do you call it? What do you? It's about more about feelings, right? Find out about how they feel and about doing certain things. And if you're talking to say an eagle, which is supposedly a D, then you want to talk about how to get things done, how to get things done fast, right? So teachers are better off teaching the kids how to make things work or how to engage others rather than assessing them and telling them you're like this, you don't get along with this, you get along with this, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a skill that a lot of adults learn late in life or don't learn at all.
Yeah, because coming back to our topic, everyone can be an engaging conversationalist. Again, it's about I'm getting here is around understanding the tendency of the other person. Now, a lot of time, knowing personality, it requires us to do a paper questionnaire. Now, my another question is that not everyone will have the same understanding, right? Well, will have even the chance to do it or even know the existence of this. So, Omar, as a conversation coach, what kind of words that perhaps
Yeah,
that will trigger those personality trigger an idea in you that okay, this person I must or I should approach this
yeah.
person in this way,
How
perhaps
do you recognize? How do you
verbal,
recognize them? Yeah,
yeah, recognizing them, words or gesture that will get people to then flex themselves in that conversation with that
yeah,
person.
yeah. Great question, Jack. So first of all, when you talk about personalities, the appearance might give you the clue. The appearance and the things that they have or the things that they do might give you a clue. So for instance, if somebody is flamboyant, you know, they're wearing colorful stuff that makes them stand out, you kind of guess that they're an I. And when they speak to you, they're always speaking with high energy. They're excited, they're happy, and they talk about fun. It's usually talking about fun stuff. When I say fun stuff, I don't mean frivolous stuff, but whatever they talk about has to have some fun, high energy element in it. So when you sense that, then your language has to change as well. So if you meet someone and he's all excited and says, "Hi, you know, I'm Omar, and you know, how do you feel today? Da, 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 da. You know, how's the COVID treating you? And you go in and you go, hi, I'm Omar. It's okay. Immediately is a no-go for that guy, for the I guy. He will find you boring because your energy doesn't match his. So if you are that low energy guy, you need to flex if you want to be able to build rapport with the other guy. You need to also greet him with high energy and talk about things in the same mode, have the same sentiments about things, same energy level about things, right? So it's really that simple. However, I think before we came online, we were discussing whether is this a skill, and well, Jack was asking that question, and we agreed that it is a skill. So for someone who is more reserved, you need to develop the skill of flexing yourself such that you can match the eye. Right? So you're a very low-key person, you need to be able to bring up your energy level, not just in your posture, but the words that you choose. If you're meeting someone who is a D, a strong, dominant person, this person is not going to be interested in the details. He's not going to be interested in emotional stuff too much, right? And he doesn't speak much. But when he speaks, it's got to be about money. It's going to be about results. It's going to be about doing things fast, how to make things better. It's always about work-oriented stuff. So you need to be able to engage at that level as well, or in that context as well. Yeah, you need to be able to talk about how do we tackle this COVID situation, rather than, you know, a lot of people are dying and, you know, they got no money. So you don't want to talk like that. You want to talk about what can we do? What can we do to revive our business? What can we do to make things better? What can we do to flatten the curve? So these are the things that you want to be able to talk about, such that you build rapport and keep the conversation going. So now there's an S person who is more concerned about emotions, about other people. They're concerned about people in general. So let's look at this COVID situation right now. So if you meet someone who's an S, you don't want to talk too much about politics. You don't want to talk too much about what corporates are doing, corporations are doing. We want to talk about human issues, right? Human issues. How are people coping with this situation? How are they dealing with this with income? You know, things like that. So they'd be more interested in all of this. And if you talk about how do we help the unfortunate ones, boom, you found the hot button. You know, because helping others is something that S people are really keen to talk about. Then finally, we've got the C people, the compliant or the conscientious people who are very analytical, right? So they don't want to go everywhere. They want to be able to talk such that it makes sense. So you can't tell them this. You can't tell them, hey, you know what? I heard by drinking hot water is going to kill the virus. They're going to be, the minute you say that, they're going to be thinking, where is this coming from? Is it proven? You know, who's backing this up? Has this been tested? They have all these questions in their head. So if you want to talk to them, you got to be able to talk to them about things that are logical, things that make sense. Yeah, so to keep the conversation going. Otherwise, they're just going to dismiss you as frivolous. Oh, there's one more, right? Oh yeah, we talked about this already. So yeah, so those are the 4 areas.
Right. I have another questions around, because again, engaging conversationalists, right? What I've been hearing so far is really you going up to the level, the same level, or same gestures, same maneuvering around the same level of way of talking, for example. What if we go just allowing that to happen? It's not, we are not going to flex ourselves, but just allow that to happen and give those extra space for this person to express themselves. Can that be also one way of having this healthy environment around the conversation? I give you an example. You have a person with a strong I, and you have a person with an S, or maybe D. That's the opposite, right? In the quadrant. So no, I and C. C is the opposite. Yeah. Now you just allow this I to express themselves in such a way that you are in total, purely understanding state of mind, and therefore you just allow it. It's similar to the other side. This C is like this, or therefore you just allow that to happen. So what do you both think on that?
Darren, what do you think?
I think it's okay as long as there's purpose. Maybe like you meet a person who is a C, and then you want to connect the person before you make the first approach. You allow them that space to express themselves, so they may go into the details. That's also good because then you get information from the person, and you can then respond to that information. Like example will be I go to a meeting and I manage to see a boss who is a C person, and when they want to do a team building, they give me a lot of details. Oh, Darren, it has to be for 100 packs. Darren, it must be 3 days tonight. Darren, it has to be, these are the objectives and you must hit the objective. Darren, please do this and please don't do this. So actually it's okay because then you have gathered information for you to respond. Sometimes that should happen because it is about being matured in allowing it to happen. But it also depends on situation because sometimes if you allow this happen with an I, then there is a danger that they might be going all over the space and they do not hit home. I've actually had this before. In 2016, I had this meeting with this boss. The company is a Japanese company, and we are supposed to do a huge team engagement event in Langkawi. We are talking about 300 people in Langkawi, so it was a logistic nightmare. And he is not a C person at all. This guy, he is an I, a totally I boss. And a meeting happened where we actually started at 2 p.m. and we finished at 6:30 in the evening. It was a 5.5 hour meeting with an I person because we allowed him to express himself, and he went on and on and on and on. He started talking about himself and a lot of things for 2 hours. Then we went back to the purpose why we're there. Then he diverted and talked about himself again for the next 1.5 hours. And by the time we actually finished the details of the meeting, it only took half an hour to close the deal. So if once again, did you get the information from, but the most important thing, he liked us because we lied him. It was painful, 5.5 hours sit there, but after that, whatever you want from him, snap of a finger, done. Because you build that relationship. So yes, you're right, Jack. You allow that space to happen, but you must accept the consequences. With a D and C, you're fairly safe because they don't take that long, right? And they have different purpose. With an S, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen because it's about trust and relationship both ways. With an I, you better be ready for a 5-hour meeting. If you're ready to invest, fine. So it comes with impact and consequence as well. So yes, give them the space, but you must have purpose.
Right. So the reason for me to ask this question is actually two reasons. Number one is, giving space for that person, and therefore it might have only when, quote unquote, there's a transaction around it. There's a reason, the consequence, you see. Another thing is really around, because when people hear a lot of time when we are sort of sharing about personality profiling, it's always around flexing, but not everyone has the skill to flex themselves. Even it's quite scary for some personality to even flex. Can you imagine if it's an S person, strong S person, flexing to be D? It's like total jump, like really, I don't think that's even possible in that short period of time, unless you're talking around lifetime kind of training, right? So that's the purpose why I say this. So again, I think the easiest is really around having that mindset of allowing and understanding, plus what Darren mentioned just now, you have to be aware of the consequences. What are you going to be having or getting out of that, you allowing those space to be like that.
Okay, I think time is running out. So before we pass it back to Jack to close it, I just have a few comments to make about that question. I think that's a very good question. So if I'm meeting someone, so let's say I'm an S and I'm meeting someone who's a strong I. So that an S person tends to be more quiet. I'm also an A, I'm also a C, which is a very analytical. So I tend to observe more. Then I meet an I who's very loud. Okay, now you're right, Darren, about purpose. So there's two things. One is, if I'm just trying to be sociable, I could allow the I person to express himself. But I think the key thing here is being knowledgeable about it. Right? Because I'm knowledgeable, I know this is an I know this is going to talk about himself, I'm going to be okay with it. But if I'm not knowledgeable about it, I probably make judgments about this guy. This guy is prasan, he's egotistical, he's all about himself, forget about him. Right? So that's one way to do it. And the other thing that I want to share about is, if you want to keep the conversation going, it's really very simple. Have a lot of questions. Remember back to Darren's 3 C's again. One of them is curiosity. So if you want to keep the conversation going, just ask him a lot of questions. So if it's an I, keep on asking questions about him, right? His achievements or her achievements. What else was fun for her? Things like that. If it's a D, ask them about their accomplishments. If it's an I, if it's another C, ask them how did they do it? What was the situation? What was the problem that they had? How did they overcome it? Things like that. If they're an S, ask them about the family. Ask them about how they feel about things. So really, the questions can keep the conversation going. Okay, I believe we're running out of time. So Jack.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Omar. Probably we can have another part 3 for this topic, because so many things to learn around how do you, well, I mean, being an engaging conversationalist is not just for communication, but it's also how you present yourself in front of people. How do people read you? That's also part of it, not just the verbal communication, but also the non-verbal part of it, right, Omar and Darren?
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, so I think a lot of things we can learn. It seeped through in every part of our lives. So therefore, I think we should have a part 3 of this, of the same topic. Yeah, probably from a different angle. So thank you so much to our audience. We have quite a number of audience today, live audience. I mean, thank you so much. Also to remind you, this point of view session, we have this every week, every Wednesday. In fact, honestly, this is not just 3 of us. You also can be part of this by you giving us your opinion as well. And not only that, we are also calling anyone that would like to share their expertise or their knowledge or skill. By all means, do reach out. You know how to get me or Omar. You can text us. Same time next week. We'll see you again next week. And before we go for today, I would like to also let you know our upcoming program, which is tomorrow. Perhaps Omar, you can help me to introduce this to our audience. I'm gonna share screen now.
Yeah, okay. I know that Jack said next week, and then she said tomorrow. So there's really 2 things here.
Oh yeah, sorry for that. Okay, I'll clarify that later. But before that, maybe you would like to say something on what we have.
Yes, okay. We've got a very special guest. Her name is Tini, and she is a firebrand. I mean, she is one of those individuals who is a survivor, and she thrives in when there's a struggle, when there's things to overcome. She thrives in those in that environment. She's a fighter, and she's built a very successful spa business for ladies, for ladies only. Okay, so I've never been to a spa. I mean, I've been to a spa once. I think to help someone do a little training. Yes, but never use the services. So she's been focused on taking care of women from head to toe, and she's been in the business for 15 years. So listen to her story. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to be inspired. So join us.
Thank you, Omar. All right. Yes, that will be tomorrow, 2:30 to 3:30. It's our inspirations series. So yeah, next week will be me, Darren, and Omar, and also Bhavani. We miss Bhavani today. So tune in to our point of view every Wednesday. We'll have a few more interesting. Hopefully, it's interesting for you. Interesting topics for all of our audience. All right. So thank you so much. So we'll end the live now. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye everybody.
Okay, we are no longer live.
That was good.
Good.
Darren, as usual, a lot of gems.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe next time, why I without asking. Actually, I wanted to ask both of you, and I forgot about the part 3 because I realized this one is a bit relevant. Well, I mean not a bit. It's relevant to many part of our lives. So I think there are a lot more things to learn around.
Anna, maybe what we can do is zoom in on one or two key areas. Because we're talking about theories a lot. So maybe we can zoom in on a particular area and see how we can apply all the things that we talked about, the 3 C's and the
we go into very something that is more relatable, like case study, for example, like how to, I don't know.
It could be handling kids. It could be husband and wife or partnerships. It could be
yeah, I think it's good, but I think you should use a tool because the Malaysian audience tend to respond very positively when there's a tool, because when they start using a tool which makes sense, they tend to relate it to their own lives without us trying to do too much of work. I would suggest, because we did in the first part 1, we did the conversation based on other aspects, a lot of other aspects. In part 2 today, we did it on personality profiling. I would suggest that if you want, part 3, we should base it on another tool, because from this tool you can also have the right kind of conversation with the right kind of people. Right. I would suggest that we use it, because personality profiling is quite tough, and what Jack said, they don't do it, they don't know about it, it's a bit harder, but it's just a suggestion, but maybe we can base it on the styles of learning, which is VAKAD, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and auditory digital, because this is very common for most people. When you tell someone's visual, what do you mean? Because a visual person focuses on areas which are visually stimulating. So when you have a conversation with them, you go there. Someone who's auditory listens, someone who's kinesthetic is all over the place. So based on that simple kind of tool, maybe someone can then take it and then use it for their own benefit, because it's easier to understand, because DIC is quite complex. It is basic and complex at the same time.
I'm about to suggest MBTI even more complex.
So MBTI is totally complex, because that one you got to do the assessment, and there's a combination of personality. If someone does it, then they understand. Yeah, but like VAKAD is visual, auditory, kinesthetic, so we can use that if you think it's going to help our audience and our people who tune in to us.
But how do we land it? When I say land it, what I mean is, how do we make it applicable?
We need to have the tool available. We need to have the tool available.
I'm not talking about assessment. I think assessment is quite straightforward. But with that knowledge, how do we use it to enhance our conversation skills?
It's the same as DIC, because you mentioned just now with the D person, there's certain things that you need to do. The same thing, if the person is categorized to be more visual, what do you do, or how do you have conversation with someone who's more visual, right? Because they see the picture.
Yeah.
How do you have a conversation with someone who's more auditory? Because they word for word, they memorize every single thing you say. Yeah. How do you have someone who can't keep still? Because then it's about being kinesthetic, it's about doing things in the moment, like things like that. So then they can relate it to themselves, because they know people who are visual, they will know people who are auditory, and they will know people who are kinesthetic themselves.
Okay. I can go from the angle of language, because I'm familiar with what you're talking about, Darren. And the language that you use can also be visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. In fact, that's my kind of secret when I write. So when I write, I use words that could be kinesthetic. So when people read it, they go, "Wow, it's interesting." You don't even know why, right? Because like for just to give you an idea, example, let's say sales has gone up, so you can say sales has increased, or you could say sales jumped. But when you see sales jumped, you see action. So when I speak like that, it's more, when someone speaks like that, it's more exciting as opposed to hearing someone who says sales increase. Another example would be, I'd like you to imagine that you can see this. Right? Immediately, you're what do you call it? Making connection with a visual person. Right? So the words that you choose can actually
Keywords, the keywords.
Yeah, can actually connect with this. Yeah. So I can go from the language angle.
The challenge, if you work backwards, then the only challenge is identifying who is the visual and who is the auditory, who's the kinesthetic, for them to use those kind of words, because that's the challenging part for a normal layman. For the trainers and all that, I guess it's fairly simple for us, but for the people who are tuning in, they may not have the skill set, and that's where the challenging part happens. So when we do next week program, it has to be like what you say, giving them the tools in how to categorize. Oh, okay, now I know. I do have it.
Free source, so we can. Well, I mean, is there anywhere where they can download or something? A link?
Let me check it out. I think there's probably a downloadable version.
Yeah, because I can put it in the caption in the the post.
Or we could just, sorry, Jack, we could just do it among ourselves.
Yes, then it'll be among ourselves, but yeah, we can also post it out for people who want to do it on their own. But I'll try to look out for a more fairly simple one, because the VAK-AD assessment can also get a bit tough because the questions asked.
I have that too. But I'm saying around, let's involve the participant, whoever wants, like if they want, that will be.
I mean, a link or a caption which they can click on, and they can do it on their own while they're listening to us. You know, that makes sense. Because we want to give people the ability to take whatever they listen online and immediately apply in their life. That's value, right? So it's like that's why I'm very choosy about the webinars which I go into, because it has to have a benefit to me. I just did a video this morning about the 7 truths about selling, and one of the truths is that people want solution. You know, people listen to solution to their lives. If you don't give me a solution to my life, whatever you say to me is just words coming out of your mouth. So you got to give them those kind of, so they take it and they go,